Alright, now that you have all your biscuits made, you can see that I have them on all my edges here. What you're going to want to do is do a test clamp. And what that is going to allow for you to do is to check to see if you have any other gaps that you didn't see before. So in order to do that, what you have to here, there's just some scrap pieces of material, doesn't matter necessarily what kind, and that's just going to go in between the clamps, because when you apply pressure, you have a tendency to, the clamps want to end up damaging the material, okay? And since pine is a softer material, it's going to dent even easier. So all I'm going to do here is put just a slight amount of pressure. You can see that I'm not cranking on these at all. All I'm doing is just putting a slight pressure on to end up getting the joints tight. If you end up having to crank on the clamps in order to tighten up that a gap at all, what that means is that you should probably go back and joint it and then re-biscuit it again. Okay? Because if you end up having to really crank on the clamps in order to get your joints nice and tight, what that's going to do is going to create a weak glue joint. And then over time, it'll eventually want to separate, or it will. Okay? So what we have look over here, it's nice and tight, everything like that. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip these over. Okay? And what I mean by that, I'm just going to take these is I'm just going to take my boards. You can see that these are the marks for my pencils. Okay? Where I marked out my biscuits. And I'm going to flip them, and what this does is it ensures that I have a flat surface that rests along the clamps. It's because my final glue surface, or the top of my board, I want to make sure is nice and flush, because any defects that I have in the board, thickness-wise or anything like that, I can end up taking those out with a hand planer, and those defects will be hidden by the top or when the chest is actually closed. And again, I want to make sure that this is the end that I have relatively square. So all I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to go ahead and place some glue on here. And notice how I'm not filling in biscuits, or those biscuit holes at all. I'm treating it as if they weren't there at all. So I don't want to have too much glue on here. And I want to make sure that I get all the edges. Try not to get any overspill on the face of the board. So what will end up happening is, again, it will cause kind of a bleach spot where it won't actually accept the poly that we're putting on. Okay? I want to work kind of fast, so actually you should just go ahead and watch. Then I'm just going to take some biscuits, place those in there. Get it somewhat lined up. If there's any gaps in here due to the biscuits, it'll clamp out, provided you made your biscuit holes deep enough. Because every once in a while it has a tendency of wanting to actually stick on the biscuits, and that'll actually come out once you have pressure on your board. Again, making sure that I get all the surface, but not so much that I can't actually see the grain, and not so little that by the time it comes to clamp, that the glue is actually already dried. also want to make sure that you have the right size biscuits for the hole that you made. So again, final face is down, and when I have the clamps, notice again they're placed about a fist length in from the ends, and my end squared, and I also want to make sure that the boards themselves are pressed down tight. And I want to just apply just a slight amount of pressure, my clamp straight so I don't push the board. And I'm going to start in the middle. Start to see that glue actually ooze out. And I want to check underneath here to make sure that my both the faces of my board are tight against the clamp. It's just to snug it up, and what I want to do is apply some pressure on the top as well. So that pressure radiates out 45 degrees and gets the entire length of the joint. And then double check, make sure everything's tight. Actually have this bottom corner lifting up. Now that's nice and tight. If you can't get it down, get it with pressing on it with your hand. You can actually go and grab the hammer and kind of pound that down. Okay, now that I have everything nice and tight, what I want to do is I want to start in the center and work my way out. Just tightening a little bit at a time. Notice how I'm jumping back and forth. Okay, and then once I have that done, I start again in the center. Work my way out. Some people end up wiping off the glue of the joints. I find it easier to actually keep it on there because as you can see it bubbled up a little bit, and what that allows it to do is it's not spread out or anything like that. When it's time, comes time and once it's dry, I can end up taking a scraper and scrape that all off. So here I have it all clamped up. Checking it, and then I'm going to go and set it in the corner to dry. Make sure that I wipe off any of the glue that has dripped down onto the table after I've moved it, as well as again the tops of the bottle so that the bottle doesn't glue shut.